Well, let's talk more about this visit by Vladimir Zelensky to Paris as well, because we're joined by Peter ZALMAYEV, who is director of Eurasian Democracy, the Eurasian Democracy Initiative, excuse me. Mr. ZALMAYEV, thanks very much for joining us. We've just been hearing from Douglas Herbert about how important the US contribution is in all this, and of course it's held up. So given that we're expecting this deal soon in Paris with Zelensky, where does he head next?
Well, he heads next to the Munich Security Conference, obviously, where he'll be talking about, continued aid to Ukraine on the part of the, European allies. And, just to recap what's happening today in Paris, once again, in the context of the absence of U.S. aid and the lack of decision on the part of Congress, which just went into a recess, until the end of the month. I mean, we need all the help that we can get, following a few weeks ago, Rishi Sunak's visit to Kiev and the signing of the bilateral. This is coming at an opportune time. But once again, and this is something that the previous speakers have said, this is no substitute for a full NATO membership. So there's a risk and there's a fear on the part of Ukrainian officials and just regular Ukrainians that these are being done sort of as a part of the realization that, NATO will not be accepting Ukraine as a member anytime soon. And so these bilaterals, while they're very helpful and stepping up France's contribution is important, as your reporter has said, France is lagging behind and place number 15 of Ukraine supporters. Well, we have this very sad precedent from 1994, if you remember, of this Budapest memorandum, which was signed by Russia, US, and Britain that jointly guaranteed Ukraine's security in return to its giving up of nuclear weapons. And look where we are now. So nothing really is a good enough alternative to NATO, which is the only guarantee of Ukraine's long-term security.
I'd like to continue on NATO. What is realistically, what can we expect as a time frame for them actually joining the bloc, and what would it realistically change?
We were hoping that the NATO summit happening soon in Washington will be an opportunity for Biden to make a big statement and to say that, well, here's the date by which Ukraine can hope to become a member. It's probably not going to happen. They're already pouring cold water on any such expectations. So we have to lower our expectations. As a result, the simple fact is that we're in a catch-22 situation. And this is something I actually asked President Macron. I was in Davos and I had a chat with Mr. Macron, the French president. And before that, I had asked him a question from the audience about the situation where it is said that Ukraine can join NATO sometime after the war is over, but not before. And so this is a catch-22. This really motivates Putin to continue this war endlessly in order to sort of delay Ukraine entering into NATO. There has to be a creative way to bypass it. Anders Fogh Rasmussen, the former Secretary General of NATO, has said that we need to consider maybe accepting part of Ukraine, maybe a western part of Ukraine into NATO, while the question of occupied territories remains sort of an undecided question for the time being, whether that will fly or not. But once again, we have to get around this catch-22 situation because simply we are in a race against time. Vladimir Putin is set on annihilating Ukraine as an independent state.
And you say that Putin is using these constant barrages against Ukraine as something of a delaying tactic for Ukraine's accession. How exactly does that work in terms of delaying its membership?
Well, I mean, once again, it's been communicated to Ukraine that NATO cannot accept Ukraine while it's at war, because that would automatically invoke Article 5, collective security under NATO. So, and that's precisely where we are. And for Vladimir Putin to continue using this to prevent Ukraine from joining it's enough to, even if all this, war is scaled down to just one or two missiles or drones fired at the Ukraine's territory a day or even once a week, that constitutes war. And so Russia has shown ability and a desire to continue this war endlessly. It seems that Vladimir Putin has consolidated his hold on power. He's finally just gotten rid of his last real opposition critic, Mr. Navalny. He feels that he can continue this war endlessly. More than that, he feels that's the only way for him to secure his hold on power, is this continuation of endless war.
And as you just mentioned, the death of the Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny, could this have any positive bearing in the war in Ukraine? Could it perhaps force international partners into action? I'm thinking of Congress, of course, in the US.
This may sound cynical, but a lot of Ukrainian experts and my colleagues have voiced this optimism that there's something good that could come out of it. It could concentrate minds in Washington, of all places. We're seeing already the Democrats, Biden and Kamala Harris, the vice president in Munich. They have mentioned it, the name of Navalny, and they have tied it to Republican opposition to Ukraine aid, to the obstruction on the part of Republican government officials, including Mike Johnson. And so they're increasing the pressure. They're tying the Republicans to Vladimir Putin, especially in the context of Tucker Carlson's recent interview with Vladimir Putin. That is increasing the pressure on Republicans to finally act and vote on this much-needed aid.
Of course, we're waiting to see if that will have any action in US, any result, any effect in US Congress. We're also still waiting to see Volodymyr Zelensky emerge from his meetings with Emmanuel Macron, the French president. We are expecting them to announce a new bilateral deal that the two countries have signed in Volodymyr Zelensky's war effort against Russia's invading forces, which, of course, the invasion is soon set to enter a third year.